where is God in this room? I heard Rabbi Wolpe reflect on that question recently. He asks it when he, at Temple Sinai in Los Angeles, has visitors, particularly non-Jewish guests. He'll say, show me where there's a vessel for God. And usually they'll point to the ark, showing that they are aware that the Torah is in the ark. And he'll say, yes, the Torah is significant for us as Jews. Some refer to it as a love letter from God, but it's not a vessel for God. And then they'll point to the Ner Tamid, the eternal flame, God's illuminating presence. Say, well, yeah, that's a symbol of God, but it's not a vessel for God. God is present in the eyes of the person next to you. For we're told that each person is created b'tselem Elohim. Rabbi Akiva says in Pirkei Avot, Chaviv Adam shenivra b'tselem. Beloved is a person that was created in the image. Chiba yetera nodat lo shenivra b'tselem. Even more dear is the fact that an individual knows that he or she was created in the image of God. And Rabbi Wolpe emphasized that when you look into the eyes of the person next to you, what you see is not God. We are not God. That's the first of the 10 Commandments. I am God, you are not. But we are vessels for that holy spark of God. And when we look into somebody's eyes and we allow ourselves to linger, and when the one being seen is willing to be vulnerable, because somehow intuitively we know that when we allow somebody to linger and to look into our eyes, indeed our eyes are a window to our inner, to our soul, and to that spark of the divine. A story from the Talmud, Baba Metzia 84a. It's a story about friends, a story about what it means to be in relationship. It's a kind of story about love. Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai was the foremost leader after the destruction of the temple. He's the one who requested Yavneh as a place of regathering as a people. And the Talmud reports that he one day was bathing in the Jordan River. And there alongside of him was the head of the thieves, a man named Reish Lakish. And he said to him, you know, you have such strength, Rabbi Yohanan says, observing his fellow swimmer, if you only use that strength for Torah. To which Reish Lakish replied, and you have such beauty, if you only use that beauty to elevate the world around you. And Yohanan says, I have a sister even more beautiful than me. And if you turn away from the ways of the brigand and allowed me to teach you Torah, I would give you my sister as your wife. And so a deal was struck. And they became chavruta, study partners, with Rabbi Yohanan clearly being more adept at Torah, but in some ways Reish Lakish being more open and experienced with the world. And one day, the story goes that they were debating when a knife becomes kosher for use, when it becomes not kosher for use. At what point a knife is a knife so that it conveys impurity, because it has to be a completed vessel. And Rabbi Yohanan says, well, when it comes through the fire It's then completed as a vessel. And Reish Lakish, who's already known, now years have gone by, as one of the leading teachers of Torah, Reish Lakish says, no, it's not till that hot blade has been put into water is it complete. Rabbi Yohanan feels a bit bested. And he says, well, you would know about knives. You who were a brigand would know when a knife is ready to be used. And Reish Lakish is so heartbroken that he would be reminded and told, you're a brigand. He said, I was a master then of the many, now I'm a master. What good has it done me to be with you? I was a master before I met you. And now Yohanan is crushed, that he has disparaged Torah and all their years of study together. And so they separated. And Reish Lakish went into a deep depression. And Reish Lakish's wife goes to her brother and says, please, you need to reconcile. You have no idea how much my husband is suffering. He says, let him be. I will take care of you and your children. And Reish Lakish dies. And then Yohanan goes into despair, because he not only feels as if perhaps he was a cause of this tragedy, but he's in despair because he has no one with whom to study. And so the rabbis know that for their teacher, for Rabbi Yohanan to be revived, he needs a chavruta, someone he can learn Torah with. And they bring him the man of the moment, who's known as one of the great scholars of the day, Eliezer ben Timna. And the Talmud records that every time Rabbi Yohanan, in the back and forth, every time he raises a legal argument, Eliezer, who's so learned, says, exactly right. I can tell you one of the oral traditions of the earlier rabbis that support your very argument. And after day of being agreed with everything that he is saying, Yohanan breaks down in despair, and he says, with Reish Lakish, every time I would make a legal claim, he would find 24 reasons to reject what I said. And in reviewing and the back and forth over each of those, our legal arguments became sharper. Our wisdom grew deeper. And then he died of a broken heart. Not a happy story. Here's why I tell this story. It's colorful. But I tell the story because there's some elements in this story that are distinctly human. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be in a friendship? What does it mean to be in love? The first element is choice. That you can choose how you live. You can be Reish Lakish, the head of the brigands, and choose to become one of the heads of learning. We choose how we move forward in our lives. The second element is that in real friendships, there's a back and forth. You know, the verse before, Leviticus 19:18, is, Ohevet re'echa kamocha, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. It's part of a couplet. And in the verse before, it says, Hocheach tochiach et amitecha, you shall surely reprove your neighbor. Which is to say, if you have love and trust, there is the opportunity to go back and forth. And the third reason I share this story is to say what is distinct about being human is you can die from a broken heart. And we know that now literally to be true. Literally. person who is emotional, who feels deeply, can literally stop breathing when one is emotionally distraught. And so, love is complicated. To be human means you get to choose. To be human means you get to feel. And to be in any healthy relationship means you get to argue. Now, not everybody would want it that way. We all have a fantasy. Not all, but I have this. Oh, no. Which is that whatever you say goes. No arguments. Your partner has one purpose in life, to please you. Now, I have a friend, Rabbi Leonid Feldman, rabbi in Florida, who was telling me that he went to the Edinburgh Arts Festival this summer, and in the course of 10 days saw close to 40 plays. He said, but there was one play that he saw that kept him up that night. It's a play called Love Plus, written by a 20-something in Dublin, Dylan Coburn Gray. It's a little edgy. It's a play about a woman who has a woman lover who's a robot. In the play that he saw performed, I didn't see the play. I read the play because he told me it kept him up that night after seeing the play, and so that got my curiosity. The bot, in the play, it's B for bot, W for woman. Here's a little dialogue from the play. In the morning, the bot asks, "Did you sleep well?" Woman, "I had some nice dreams." Bot, "What were you dreaming about?" "Not sure. I can't really remember. You know." Pauses. Bot, "You look well rested." "Don't I normally?" "Of course you do. You are wondrous beauty queen." Woman laughs. "Was that funny?" A little further in the play, the woman thanks the bot for all the considerations, how the bot had provided dinner the evening before, even though the woman had been delayed at work. Everything was ready when she got home. And the bot says, "There's no need to thank me," explaining, "But I do not experience any negative feelings if you don't thank me for the work I do. I am programmed to work. It's what I am for." In the middle of the play, again, the bot only is programmed to please the woman. Anything she wants, and there's banter between them. She's capable of being very engaging, but the robot, the bot's only goal is to please. In the middle of the play, the woman finally says, "I wish you could have sweat patches, greasy hair, smelly feet, bristly legs." The bot replies, "I will never tell you, that's enough." The woman, "I wish you could tell me when I'm being needy." Bot, "I will never fight back." Woman, "I wish you had your own smell." Bot, "I will never forget your birthday, your mom's birthday, the dates you need to go to the dentist." Woman, "I wish you could get sick and need me to take care of you." As the play concludes, this is the spoiler alert, I'm sorry. The woman says, "I wish you could have a life outside of me." But I will never even want to. I will never want what you don't want. Woman, "I wish you could love me. But I will never want at all." beware of the fantasy. Because love is a package deal. Relationships of all kinds are a package deal. And love is the ability to go and feel deeply disappointment and rejoicing, the needs of the other as a choice. Martin Buber said that the divine, God, is experienced in the in-between in relationship, a particular kind of relationship. He said we have two kinds. We have I-it relationships. When we get in an Uber, the driver is an it. Not that they're not more prone than taxi drivers to talk, but the goal is to get from point A to B. A person is providing a service. That's true of a waiter or the pilot of a plane. It's natural to have I-it relationships, to have those we pay to meet our needs. But Martin Buber taught there's another kind of relationship. It's I-thou. In an I-thou relationship, the other person is not a means to an end. The other person exists in their own right as having dignity. And when you are able with another to honor their presence, to listen and be present, in that moment of connectedness, the divine is also present. Love is sometimes taking out the trash, but it is at its core more simply being present with a thou who's independent, who is not you, but has his or her own needs. I told a congregant I was going to give this sermon, and that the punchline is that love is arguing. And he says, I don't know if I want my wife to hear that sermon. That's not the purpose of the sermon, for either side to argue more. But it's to argue that love means living and loving an independent other, and honoring the other as having his or her own needs and choice and consciousness. We live in a world that's rapidly changing with robots. Amazon is looking to create a new distribution center. In its current distribution center, there are 100,000 robotic arms. And what they have found is that the robotic arms are very effective at taking boxes and organizing them. They have at the end of their arm a grasper. And the workers, interestingly, find that the robot arms have made their work a lot easier. They, in an article just this week about this topic, the workers, have given names to the robots. That is also how we are wired. When we interact, we tend to give an identity. I saw with Linda this summer in Aspen a conversation with an MIT professor who does work with robots, talking about her lab where people develop relationships. There's like a little dinosaur. This is a copy of the dinosaur that she had. This dinosaur's, you can buy this dinosaur on Amazon. This dinosaur, I'm just looking up the price. I had it. It's not cheap though. All right, I'll get back to you on that. This dinosaur, $469. All right, but you get a lot for the money. She had this dinosaur on the stage. It's 2.8 pounds, 18 inches long, Philo RB. So Pleo RB. Pleo RB comes initially like a little baby dinosaur. Doesn't do much, sleeps a lot. Then you tickle it underneath, it coos, begins to learn. It can learn, you can teach it its name, and it responds to its name. And it has sensors for sight, it has sensors for feel, it has sensors for sound, and Pleo RB becomes like a pet. Well, in the conversation, this pet, the subjects at the lab are given a hammer. And they're told, okay, you've gotten to know Pleo RB. Here's a hammer, smash Pleo RB. They can't do it. Because once, even though they know it's only metal and cloth, once you've become friends with Pleo RB, you can't hit it. We are wired, on one hand, to have that quality of relationship. And more, this is the great drama of the moment. More and more robots and machines are doing our work. At the University of Michigan, just last month, all the shuttles on campus are self-driving. It's coming fast. Self-driving trucks will take the semis, drivers off the road who will be watching monitors within 5 years. Computers have won, beaten Kasparov, who was the grandmaster. 2 Jeopardy champions were beaten by a computer. No small task, because Jeopardy questions are written often as plays on words, which means that the computer that beat the Jeopardy champions had to be able to manipulate language, and it crushed them. Yuval Harari is a professor of history at Hebrew University. He wrote a book in Hebrew called Sapiens, a brief history of humanity, that was translated into 40 languages. When Fareed Zakaria asked Barack Obama, President Obama, at the end of his term, what's the one book you would recommend, he said Sapiens. His most recent book is called Homo Deus, Deus meaning God, man, God, a brief history of the future. And in Homo Deus, Yuval Harari raises a philosophic question. His question is when machines become more intelligent than people, right? They beat us in chess, they can beat us in Jeopardy, they can problem solve, they can buy stocks on the stock market, and they can be self-learning now, machine learning. He raises the question, what does it mean to be human when you're no longer the most intelligent part of the world around you? Big question. The book was actually depressing for me. But less depressing from hindsight, because he had an assumption that is not mine. His assumption is that we as humans are also algorithms, that we're just formulas, that we fool ourselves by thinking that we have free will, that we fool ourselves by thinking that we make choices, that we fool ourselves by thinking that we love. I think he's wrong. The whole premise of these holidays, of Rosh Hoshanah to Yom Kippur, the whole premise of Judaism is that we're created b'tselem Elohim, that we are created in the image of God. What does that mean? It means the ability to choose. It means that there's a quality within us that watches, discerns, and judges. We don't know quite how consciousness works. The rabbi said 2,000 years ago that just like a person has within him or herself a quality of awareness, which the rabbis refer to as soul, so too does the world embody a quality of awareness, a quality of soul that he and we call God. I do believe in my bones that we make choices for good and for bad, that we, included in those choices, make commitments to love another. That's a package deal. Honoring the other as other with his or her own needs. And that it is this ability to love, to feel deeply, to have a heart that can break, and to have a heart that can celebrate, to have the ability to experience life with consciousness is uniquely the gift that we are endowed with. We are blessed to grow in that ability to love. We are gifted by God to grow in the awareness of ourselves that allows us to make choices that become expressions of God's presence in the world. Love is not all you need. You need patience, you need trust, you need a commitment for love to grow. And yet, to know for each of us on this Rosh Hoshanah, on this holy day, that indeed we are not robots. We are not here just to please. We are here also to understand ourselves, to find our authentic self. And for the more deeply we find our authentic self, the more we are connected to God. Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav says we are gifted to reach in, to reach out, and to reach up. And in no matter which direction we reach, when we reach with all ourselves, we are touching God. Ribono Shel Olam, you have endowed us with gifts. The gift to be created in your image, to be a vessel for your holy spark. May we in these coming days take a moment to pause, to look into the eyes of another long enough to see that twinkle, that holy spark that leads to you, knowing that our hearts kindle sparks to express love, passion, the gift of gratitude for our lives. We are not bots. We are created in your image. May we grow in love. Amen.